Hello and welcome to Charter Talk, a show where we dive deep into the world of finance, strategy, and forces shaping global markets. And today, we brought a very important and insightful conversation that is risk capital. And to talk on this important topic, I have the privilege to host Kees Hoving, the Chief Executive Officer of Deutsche Bank in the UAE, who brings decades of experience in the world of banking and investment. So Kees, welcome to the show. Let's dive in this important topic of risk capital.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So Kees, we have seen all around the world, countries like America, Britain, and India. They're rising a lot of startup ecosystem within the country. So how do you see that UAE is taking up the stage in terms of risk capital to promote the startup ecosystems?
Yes, I think historically, if you look to what the UAE is doing, is obviously diversification of their economy. With the oil price, a lot of funds have flown into the region and they want to deploy these funds. So if you look to the startup world for venture capital, that has gone in the last 10 years from about 100 million to about $1 billion a year. They are building a complete infrastructure. So they focus on certain sectors. They make sure there is an exit strategy by making the capital markets more transparent. The regulations are more transparent and more robust. A lot of seed capital is attracted to the region. The government-backed initiatives is also very important to get the ball rolling. So you can see a lot of initiatives to get the UAE up on a global scale, but more can be done.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. Every time from our global offices, when we see out there, a lot of people considered UAE as a capital of capital, considering there's a huge number of family offices around the country. And I continue to see there's a lot of investment talks essentially that happens around. There's a lot of investment shows that happens around. People from different parts of the world continue to come here. An important aspect that I've seen that from a government also, there's a number of initiatives that has come out there. So let's say, for example, FinTech Hive in DIFC, In5 in Dubai Internet City. Then we have a fund, or we can say we have incubation center in ADGM as well. These are some of the platform which provides kind of breaking grounds for those startups to come and unleash their potential for growth. So do you come across during your your experience in the UAE, do you come across people or some of the specific startup which has taken lift from any of the incubations here?
Yeah, so we as Deutsche Bank look into the sector as well, also to provide them with flow solutions. And the first, I asked my analyst to get me a spreadsheet with, let's say, our prospects, and we got over 400, and that was within 10 seconds almost. So there's a huge space out here. But I think what the UAE is trying to do is make it more robust, attract global investors, and show that this is not only for seed capital, but also for Series A, so that the bigger tickets later on in the stage of a company can also be funded. That's very, very important. Also, pick the right sectors. So move away from the historical sectors like logistics, but also go into AI, deep tech, e-health. That is also very important here for the region. So from that perspective, if you look to a couple of larger funds, they really are investing. They need to also organize themselves within the region. The UAE, Saudi, Egypt, and other areas, they need to align regulatory frameworks. So for an investor, you can scale a company because the UAE by itself is usually too small as a starting point to build revenue. So you need to be in the region and attract international investors to show that the region has sufficient upside in revenues and then in valuations.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with this particular point, because until now we've been seen and the UAE have been known out there to invest in different countries and economies all around the world. But then lately, in 2023 and 2024, there was a greater shift to deploy and to attract the global capital within the UAE as well. Considering the groups like International Holding Company, which is grown from 40 to 700 entities at this point in time, or been looking into the Mubadlas and looking into kind of within the even Dubai Holdings kind of mergers that is happening around. So I think the consolidation is trend in the country, But I think in my opinion, when I go and talk to different startups out there, what the critical thing that they face out there, the hesitation in investing into a sheer seed capital of a startup. uh, what could be the particular reason, like is it you consider that only the awareness, or maybe um, kind of like a little bit more fostered education is critical in terms of like looking into these startup at seed capital? Because if the seed capital is there, then they reach to stage of series A or series B or series C. Yeah. But if the UAE grown startup, which I call like for example Imaracons, because now you have seen unicorns, indicorns, or Bitcoins, but in the UAE, those homegrown startup Imaracons can be of that level if somebody can look into the seed capital from that angle.
No, exactly. I think what investors will want is talent available. So, and I think with the golden visa, etc., to attract coders, etc., I think the UAE has done a great job. Is the long-term outlook for an exit available? How can we sell? Is also the regulatory environment stable? That's very important. So if you put your money in, can I get it out one day? So from that perspective, I think investors need some confidence. We need, from the UAE perspective, to showcase success stories, to show investors that actually this is a robust and good place to invest, and you can grow your investment and you can get a decent exit. That trust has to be built, and examples are very important of that.
I think this is very important aspect, and I think government is definitely considering. I was recently part of one of the core discussion, closed room discussion around how to build the startup ecosystems and what regulatory framework that they should bring in out there. I mean, we work very closely with some of the government department where they attract the global talent, and the discussion around the closed rooms happens around how we can foster better confidence, how we can have diligence, the processes and models within these systems, so that the investors' confidence increase. However, like, this is ongoing stuff, and I think continuing the UAE's progression, I think it will fall in place at certain stage. But which all the key sectors that you believe that one should be looking when they think of investment within the Middle East, and especially in the UAE? Which all the key sectors that you believe?
I think artificial intelligence and deep tech is obviously one. Logistics will remain, and supply chain will remain an important one for this region. I think health will remain very important. Education tech, that's a very nice one as well for the region, because there's a lot of young people here that need to be educated, also like in Saudi and Egypt. So from that perspective, these are key sectors where they need to build. One other quick remark on attracting more money into the region. What they need is also the institutional investors, pension funds, asset managers, insurance companies. They need also to join up. And then the total, investment pool will be larger. I mean, the Microsoft $1.5 billion investment obviously was a big step forward as well to create more confidence in the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely, because in the country like today, there's a lot of resources which is available. Like, the other countries, when we look into that, they need to really create those resources. Fortunately, we live in a place where there's a lot of resource available. I think it's all about creating awareness about those resources and bringing out those people to the country to create those opportunities for people out here. I think the capital is in itself is sufficient. If we look into these family owned businesses, essentially from 2021, we start creating awareness about raising IPOs, which means bringing out those family-owned businesses to the forefront within the economy to reflect the kind of contribution that they made within the economy itself. So I believe, more such of work is critical. And you rightly said that, especially the AI and tech is definitely a model to look forward. But besides that, one of the key trend which is also emerging right now, I remember recently in past, we have been approached by, some of the family businesses out there, and they want to invest into facility management. They want to invest into the waste management. They want to invest into environment friendly
sustainability. Exactly. I missed that one, but carbon capture is a huge topic.
Yeah, it's something big. I mean, we also heard about, the carbon trading platform that to be based out of ADGM. Though it's not in buzz right now, but I'm sure there's some sort of work which is ongoing in the background about the carbon because this is a big industry. And many people might not be knowing about the story behind the Tesla. I think the carbon trading was one of the key fundamental of its phenomenal and multifold and multi-story growth out there. So probably something, if you can touch base on that, from an environment.
Yes, I actually have been in contact with some companies in ADGM on the sustainability and the carbon capture and carbon trading topic. We as a bank are not active in that space yet. We are watching it. But definitely in the UAE, they have a great positioning because interestingly, the oil and gas exposure, obviously people say that's bad. It's also good because that gives them, first of all, the incentive to do it, but also they know how the carbon world works. And from that perspective, I think the UAE is doing the right things. It probably needs a bit of maturity still and a bit of more volumes happening. But that whole carbon trading environment will be fascinating for the UAE.
I think based on our discussion, what I really understand is that there's a lot much work that is happening around, yet there's a lot much more we have to travel. So one final question, Kees, about it. You have seen the global banking all around the world. Let's say somebody comes with an ideation, and I have a great idea, and UAE is perfect place because it offers you a very seamless way to get into the corporate world by registering one of the entities in any of the free zone. There are 53 free zones available, so one can register very easily. So I have an idea. I got to UAE. I register my entities like maybe $5,000, and that's where I start my journey. But what are the key steps that one has to think through it? To get his seed capital, probably not just in the UAE but anywhere in the world. What should be the first step that people do that, in your opinion? Like, how they should reach to institutions like Deutsche Bank?
Yeah, look, I think I have some experience with that as well. Privately, if you want, let's say, your first $1 or $2 million, usually you go to the friends and family, and sometimes people say the fools, the FFF. But seriously, usually you go into your own networks. There's not a real marketplace, or you do crowdfunding, but that has some disadvantages as well. So that is usually the first phase. And in the UAE, knowing all the family offices and the wealth. I mean, yesterday I was at a meeting. Again, someone talks to you about something, and again, you have a follow-up session on that funding and that business idea. So I think here it's really a good place, but you have to network. The government has a lot of incentives and networking events where you can find people. So I think here you will find the investors if your idea is a good idea. Because also some investors I speak to, they get like 20 a week ideas.
Yeah.
So it has to be very good.
Yeah. So I think I totally agree with you, because we have been approached. We do a lot of M&A transactions. So we approached by a lot of people, like they have their ideation and they want to start a seed capital. So one critical thing that I say that nowadays the trend has changed. Previously the people were running after the idea. What is a nice idea is today. Now today the situation is that idea is fine, but what about founder? What is the intent, integrity, and commitment of the founder to lift? And what level of confidence this investor has into the founder that drive the first sort of your capital contribution, you can say that.
That's the key topic.
Yeah,
I've done a few private investments, and some of them, unfortunately, the biggest issue was founder and investor conflict, where it goes wrong.
Absolutely. And one last question on the aspect of this as well is that when we talk about not just only capital, today we have seen some of the grown-up startup. When I say grown-up startup, they have done their startup journey, they put together the capital, then they raise the funds through friends and family. Yeah. And the operation reached a sizable level.
Scale up, basically.
Yeah, they pretty scale up. Now what they need is they need debt capital.
Yeah.
So they need debt capital to bolster their growth and continue to bolster and reach to a point where they can think of either I can go IPO or I can raise now, I can divest my equity because now it's sustainable, it's profitable. So does the banks look into the debt venturing in such kind of, places?
Well, banks usually finance either assets or cash flow. So if your startup has neither and is like a good idea and building revenue but still loss making, usually that's quite tough. There might be some local banks here who like that. They might have special divisions to look into that. We don't have that as Deutsche Bank here.
Yeah, and most of bank, I believe
Yeah.
that's where the challenge is. Like, if the startup is not actually start making the break even, situations is continue to drivers, and that thing, this is
you
one
need,
of the,
you need equity for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a key change, right? It's something like, this is a fundamental shift over last 3 to 5 years that people have seen, considering like, a lot of startup coming up, scaling up, and then going down the drain. So thank you so much, Kees, for having such an important conversation. I really love the kind of the wealth of experience that you carry out there in this specific field, and enlightening our viewers out there on this important topic of risk capital. So thank you very much for watching us. Stay tuned for more updates and more podcasts on such trending and important topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.